So good morning, friends, and welcome back to the online learning platform at Department of Civil Engineering, BMS Institute of Technology and Management. So we are back together again for municipal wastewater engineering. And if you recollect in the previous class, we had discussed about the various technologies when it comes to sludge handling, sludge treatment. Okay, in today's class, we are going to move ahead and we are going to discuss about self-purification of streams, or rather self-purification of rivers. I'll briefly introduce you to that concept. I'll explain to you the significance aspects, what is the working principle behind this, and finally I shall summarize the presentation and list the references for your kind perusal. Friends, whenever you say self-purification of streams, okay, in simple words, what we need to understand is there is probably some mechanism, okay, there is some process which is naturally occurring in a river or a stream, wherein it will get automatically, naturally purified. Okay, that is, let us say if any wastewater gets discharged into a river or a stream, what is that which will obviously happen? The water will get contaminated. Your river or your stream will get polluted. Naturally, the dissolved oxygen level of your river or your stream will come down, and the biochemical oxygen demand of your river or stream will rise. But as you continue further, as you go downstream, after a certain distance, you find that the water is again clean. Of course, may not be 100%, may not be pristine, but you find that relatively, as the river water is traveling, as the stream water is traveling, after a certain distance, okay, the river water or stream water has got cleansed itself. It has got purified itself. The BOD level has come down and the dissolved oxygen level has reached again to the saturation level. So in simple words, when the river gets purified on its own, this phenomenon is known as self-purification of streams. Please understand that a river can be contaminated by multiple sources. It can be probably a point source wherein you can identify who is the culprit or who is discharging the effluent. It can also be a non-point source where you will not be able to trace the culprit. Okay, let us say runoff, which is coming from urban areas, or let us say runoff, which is coming from agricultural areas. They're all non-point sources. Okay, so point sources are invariably easier to handle when compared to non-point source. Now, whenever you speak about the concept of self-purification of streams, basically we are talking about disposal by dilution. So friends, what you need to understand is, sometimes wastewater is also intentionally discharged into a river or a stream based on certain conditions, based on certain criterias, and these conditions and criterias could be such as the classification of your fresh water, or it can be the existing quality of the river, or it can be the existing characteristics of the wastewater itself. Okay, so this aspect of self-purification of streams has indulged in what we know as disposal by dilution. That is, if we are discharging wastewater into a river or a stream, okay, due to the concept of dilution, the wastewater gets treated. All right, now what are the various factors which can assist this? What are the various factors which can facilitate this? As you can see in the screen, okay, I have listed it down. First and foremost, okay, the wastewater which is getting disposed into your river or stream must not be septic. What do you mean by septic? That is, the DO is 0 or very less. Okay, only a fresh water or a fresh sewage can be allowed to enter into a river or a stream with treatment or without treatment. Okay, of course, conditions apply. Now, when I say fresh water, it means that that sewage still has dissolved oxygen present. Therefore, it will not put a stress on the dissolved oxygen of the stream. Okay, second one is suspended solids. If in case suspended solids are there in your wastewater, you are not supposed to dispose it into the water body. Suspended solids must be removed before disposal into any river or a stream. Second is volume of the receiving body. Obviously, Okay, if the volume of the receiving body is very high, then the dilution potential will be very high. In simple words, okay, if you are disposing wastewater into a pond and an ocean, obviously the dilution capacity is higher in an ocean because of the surface expands. Okay, the second one is high dissolved oxygen. All right, now if in case the receiving water has very high dissolved oxygen, then you can definitely go ahead with disposal. If in case your river and stream already has a reduced dissolved oxygen, then it is not suitable or favorable to dispose the wastewater. Nextly, swift forward currents. Okay, if the river is getting self-purified, it's only because of these currents, it's because of the velocity. All right, see, probably in the further slide I'll explain to you with respect to that. And secondly, non-toxic substances. When I say disposal of wastewater, here more or less I'm referring to municipal wastewater. I am not referring to industrial wastewater, because industrial wastewaters will contain toxic components which can further lead to biomagnification. Okay, say the episode of Minamata Bay disaster. Okay, finally, most importantly, please understand that even though the river and stream can get self-purified, it is not safe to drink the water downstream. So in case if the purpose of the river or stream is for drinking, then the wastewater cannot be disposed. So friends, what did we understand in this slide? We have got a brief idea of what do you mean by self-purification of streams. Also, you understood that this has been taken as an advantage when we want to dispose wastewater, because this is due to the principle of dilution. Thirdly, we have also understood in this slide what are the conditions which favor disposal by dilution, wherein we are aware that self-purification of river will take place and the wastewater will get treated. Okay, now let's now try to understand what are the various factors which is helping the dilution to take place. What are the various factors which are helping self-purification to take place? There are various factors, for example, dilution, dispersion, okay, sedimentation, oxidation, reduction, temperature, type of the microorganisms, availability of DO, okay, type of the organic matter, the sunlight, and of course your hydrographic factors. Now friends, if you remember, when we spoke about activated sludge process, or when we spoke about aerobic lagoons, or when we spoke about aerated lagoons, okay, everywhere we were talking about treatment of the wastewater by aeration. Okay, in a lake or a pond or a closed system, okay, the rate at which the air mixes with water is very less, and that is why you tend to go for mechanical aerators or diffused aerators. But when it comes to your river or a stream, they are running water ecosystems. The water is running, so naturally, a river or a stream has multiple turns or curves. A river or a stream has multiple jumps, as you would rather say as waterfalls. Okay, and of course various heights, it could be a mini fall as well. So due to these number of turns, due to these number of curves, okay, the rate at which air mixes with water is very high. Therefore, you don't have to introduce anything called as a mechanical aerator or a diffused aerator. The aeration is taking place naturally here, thanks to the velocity, thanks to the currents. Okay, so in other words, if in case the rate of velocity and the rate of currents is very good, then the dilution will be better, then self purification will be better. But please understand one thing: if in case if the velocity is extremely high, then it can do the reverse as well, because if in case the velocity is very high, then it is possible that the water, or rather the currents, will not allow the sediments to settle down. Okay, the sediments to settle down. Now that we are speaking about sediments, let us talk about sedimentation. Okay, if in case your stream velocity or your river velocity, if it is less than the scouring velocity, then what is going to happen? All the organic matter, all the pollutants, all the solids which are settleable in nature, they will settle to the bottom of the river, or they will settle to the bottom of the stream. Okay, nextly, amount and type of organic matter. Please understand, if the amount of organic matter is very high, then it will take a greater time for self purification to take place. If the amount of organic matter is lesser, then the dilution potential will be better. Okay, the rate of self purification will be better. And why is that? Because whenever organic matter enters your water body, it exerts oxygen demand, that is biochemical oxygen demand. Automatically, if you've got very high amount of organic matter entering, the BOD will be very high and the DO will deplete very fast. Okay, now let's move further and understand with respect to your rate of reaeration, that is oxidation. Please understand that the rate at which your dissolved oxygen deficiency is replenished, okay, it is entirely governing the self purification process. If your rate of reaeration is faster, then the rate at which dissolved oxygen is replenished will be faster. Therefore, self purification also will be faster. So what is important for us to understand is the rate at which air mixes with water, the rate at which oxygen is exchanged with other gases in the water should be on a higher note. Okay, nextly, sunlight. How does sunlight help in self purification of streams? Okay, probably you have understood this concept when we spoke about facultative pond, as you can see on this image, okay, wherein we spoke about a symbiotic relationship between the algae and the microorganisms. Okay, not only that, see, sunlight also helps certain microorganisms also to grow. Okay, now please understand, it is not just your green plants who require sunlight. Also, microorganisms utilize sunlight for growth. And what they do is, since there is sunlight, these microorganisms will be present. These microorganisms will break down the organic matter and release carbon dioxide. Okay, now when it comes to your hydrographic factor, that is, let us say I'm talking about surface expanse. If the width of the river is very big, okay, if the if the stream is running for great lengths, then the self purification will be faster. It's just as simple as, how much of volume, how much of surface area are you providing for aeration to take place. All right, then when you talk about reduction, we are basically talking about, those sediments which have settled down. Okay, we are basically talking not about biochemical oxygen demand, we are talking about sediment oxygen demand, something which happens in the anaerobic zone, very similar to what happens in your anaerobic ponds or your facultative ponds at the bed. Okay, wherein the anaerobic bacteria, all right, they would be reducing your organic matter. Okay, now please understand, reduction can be a biological process, reduction can also be a chemical process. Okay, invariably what is happening, okay, due to reduction, then gases such as hydrogen sulfide or sulfur dioxide, okay, or probably methane will be generated. And of course, it is still benefiting us because the organic matter has been decomposed, and these gases will, get escaped into the atmosphere whenever air is mixing with water. Finally, now let us come to understand how temperature helps us. Please understand that, if you look at human beings itself, on a cold winter day, you don't feel like getting up. Okay, why is that? Or rather, on a summer, you feel more active. The reason is very simple. The activity of a human being, the energy levels of a human being, okay, it is actually governed by sunlight. Okay, so if we are active, it is probably because when we are exposed to sunlight, there is a certain amount of hormone which is produced in our body, which keeps us active. Similarly, okay, in similar manner, what is the temperature? That will also decide whether your microorganisms are active or inactive. Generally, what happens is when you have a very low temperature, the microbes or the bacteria are very dormant or they are very inactive. Okay, and if that is the case, what will happen to decomposition? That also will be slower, that also will be lesser. That is why usually, if in case a wastewater enters a river in a winter and a summer, the rate at which self purification takes place will be slower in the winter when compared to summer, because in summer the microbes are extremely active in breaking down all the organic matter. All right, friends, so let us recap what we have understood in this slide. In this slide, we have understood that there are various factors which can influence the process of self-purification of streams. That is disposal by dilution. Okay, and each of these factors that you are looking at, okay, it could be physically involved, chemically involved, or biologically involved. And each of these factors are helping either in enhancing the rate or reducing the rate of self-purification. So now let us come to the last part of today's presentation, that is zones of pollution or zones of purification in the river or a stream. Okay, now this is very important for us because this can also be called as zones of tolerance. I would humbly request each of you to observe very carefully this image. Okay, now we have typically 4 zones. Please listen to me carefully. Please observe carefully. First is your clear water zone or clean zone. Okay, second one is zone of degradation. Okay, zone of degradation, that is, or zone of decomposition. The third one is zone of active decomposition, or rather septic zone. The fourth one is the zone of recovery. And of course, the final one is your clear water zone or clean zone. I'll repeat once again. Zone number 1 is the clear water zone or clean zone. Zone 2 is zone of degradation or zone of decomposition. Third zone is the septic zone, which is the zone of active decomposition. The fourth zone is your zone of recovery. And finally, of course, you have the first zone repeating, which is your clear water zone. I want you to observe very carefully, because when you look at this image, okay, there are certain criteria or attributes which are, very distinct. For example, okay, what is the quality of dissolved oxygen? Please observe this image. Okay, you can see 8 ppm in the clean zone, and as you come to the septic zone, it becomes 2 ppm. And again, as you go towards the recovery zone and further, it becomes 8 ppm. So one essential attribute you have to understand is, as I move from clean zone to recovery zone, okay, dissolved oxygen is reducing and then increasing. What is the second thing you see? You see what kind of aquatic species are present. Obviously, you find that the fishes, what you see in zone 1 is not there in zone 2. Okay, what you see in zone 3, probably you don't see any fishes at all. But again, you see in zone 4, there are fishes. Zone 5, there are fishes. But if you look at the morphology, okay, you can find out that this fish does not resemble this fish. Okay, so probably we are talking about fishes which are tolerant, okay, or sensitive when it comes to pollution or dissolved oxygen. Okay, friends, with this small understanding, let me start explaining to you each zone. Okay, now look at this image below here. This is the direction of flow. This is this is how the river is flowing. This is how your stream is flowing. Please follow my cursor movement. Okay, now if you can see here, you can see an outfall or a point of waste. So what we need to understand is the wastewater or the outfall is actually after the clean zone. So there is no wastewater which enters in zone number 1. The wastewater actually enters in zone number 2. Okay, so first zone is actually the clean water zone. Okay, here the water is clear, the water is attractive in appearance, the oxygen level is, the dissolved oxygen level is at its saturation, that is 8 ppm. You can find the fishes, you can also find other forms of microorganisms, All right, now everything is perfect here, okay, because the water is not contaminated and the water is not impure. Of course, at the same time, I would like to express that please do not expect that, you know, this water is pristine. There are possibilities that this water may still contain impurities, and it's also possible that the DO at this level may not be at saturation. I'll explain this attribute to you when it comes to DO sat curve. Now, imagine we have a river, okay, or a stream, and at one point of the river or stream, there is wastewater which is being discharged. So, when the wastewater is being discharged, what is going to happen? Immediately the wastewater and the river water will start mixing. Okay, now the wastewater contains impurities. It contains organic fractions. Now what is going to happen? These organic fractions will start getting degraded. Okay, it can be a biochemical oxygen demand, or it can probably sometimes be also chemical oxygen demand. So what is going to happen in this zone, that is your decomposition zone, or rather the zone of degradation? What happens here is the dissolved oxygen level starts falling down. Okay, here the dissolved oxygen level will start falling down. Here, slowly the biochemical oxygen demand will rise. As the DO comes down, carbon dioxide level will rise. Okay, those fishes which cannot survive this sudden change in dissolved oxygen, those fishes or aquatic species which cannot survive this pollution, they will move away from this water. Either they will die, they will perish, or they will move away from the water. And if in case, if it is upstream, it will be difficult for these fishes to move, and rather they will perish. Okay, now as you go further, as you move from your zone of degradation to your septic zone, that is your zone of active decomposition, friends, we have hit the bottom. Here the dissolved oxygen has become extremely less. The biochemical oxygen demand has become extremely high. At one particular point here, you will not find any fishes. Okay, probably there will be no oxygen also at certain depths. Then what is going to happen here? Your aerobic conditions gets converted to anaerobic conditions. Okay, there will be more of anaerobic bacteria rather than aerobic bacteria. Here, rather than biochemical oxygen demand, sediment oxygen demand will be exerted. That is, all those sediments, all those settlable solids, all those impurities which have settled to the bottom of the river bed, they get oxidized anaerobically. Okay, that again pulls down the oxygen level, that again reduces the dissolved oxygen level. But as you move further, slowly the dissolved oxygen level rises. Okay, if you look at your recovery zone, okay, please understand that these are actually mirror images. Okay, your recovery zone is a mirror image of your decomposition zone. All right, but it is reciprocal. So where in decomposition zone the dissolved oxygen was gradually reducing, in the recovery zone the dissolved oxygen is gradually increasing. Okay, here what happens is your dissolved oxygen content will start rising, okay, above the 40% level. Okay, and again you find fishes present here, but again all kind of fishes will not be available here. You might end up finding fishes like carp, okay, or your catfishes who are very strong and tolerant and can be surviving even if the DO is very less. But your normal fishes, your normal river fishes, or you know, your trout, or let's say your bass, those kind of fishes cannot survive in your zone 2 and zone 4. Those kind of fishes reappear only in the 5th zone, wherein again the river and stream has got self-purified. Okay, and how did this happen? Because the water is constantly moving. It is not a lake or a pond, it's a river ecosystem. It's a stream ecosystem. The river is constantly moving. There are multiple turns, there are multiple jumps and falls, due to which air gets mixed, oxygen enters, the impurities, you know, in the form of gases are removed. So friends, so this is what we understand by the zones of purification or the zones of pollution in a river or a stream. Okay, now please understand, in different literatures you may find different terminologies, but usually, typically speaking, there are four zones: the clear water zone, zone of degradation, zone of septicity, zone of recovery. After the fourth zone, zone number one reappears, that is clear water zone. Okay, so one thing what you need to understand is, we do make an assumption when it comes to this kind of study, and the assumption is the wastewater is entering in the river only at one point. Okay, let's go back. If you look at this image, okay, the wastewater is not entering in zone 1, it is not entering in zone 2, it is not entering in zone 3, it is not entering in zone 4. The wastewater is discharged only in zone 2. Please understand, this is one of the critical assumptions which is made, and only if this assumption is valid, then the self purification can happen. Please understand, why most rivers in India do not get self purified is probably because the assumption fails. Let us say you talk about Ganges, which is one of the longest rivers. The reason why Ganga is not getting cleaned up or purified is because the self purification capacity has been exhausted. Okay, it is not because Ganga doesn't have a surface expanse. It is a long river, the water is very fast, but then the rate at which we are dumping the waste material, okay, it is exceeding the self purification potential. And not only that, you're not giving Ganga time to get self purified, because you know, at every kilometer or less than that, if there are industries and municipalities discharging wastewater, where are you giving Ganges the time to recover? Okay, so please remember this very carefully. A critical assumption for self purification to be successful is from zone 2 to zone 4. Okay, until zone 5 appears, the wastewater is not discharged anywhere into the river except in zone 2. Okay, so as you can see in this image, the first zone was a clear zone, but zone 2 and zone 3, that is your zone of degradation and septicity, they are actually the polluted zones. But it is in the zone of recovery, it is in zone of recovery that self purification commences. Okay friends, now let's now try to, you know, have a recap of what we have understood with a small video. I'm sure this will enhance your understanding.
Hello, AP Environmental students. Today's YouTube video is going to go over SAG curves, which basically shows a graphical representation of what happens to a stream or a river when you have organic pollution dumped into that river, and it shows the effect on the dissolved oxygen and the BOD. So, as you can see from my diagram, right here we've got a stream or a river that has 5 distinct zones. We have the clean zone, the decomposition zone, a septic zone, recovery zone, and a clear zone. So again, if this is a stream or a river, I want you to imagine that your current is going towards the arrow. And we can say that this is the current. We can say it's the time after dumping. We can also say it's the distance from the actual dump site. So let's say our dumping is occurring right by the decomposition zone. And what's being dumped here is organic pollution. Organic pollution is pollution that came from or was once living. So this could be sewage spills that includes fecal matter from humans or other animals. It can be storm drains that have picked up debris on the way. It can also pick up things like dog feces or animal feces or goose droppings, leaf litter, dead animals and plants from natural disasters like fires or mudslides. Anything like that. Again, it has to be organic pollution. And again, organic means that it was once alive or came from a living thing. So our pollution is being dumped right over the decomposition zone. And what you'll see here with this red line is the BOD, or biological oxygen demand.
So we need to understand that as we move downstreams, okay, when the wastewater was discharged, the DO level is going to reduce gradually. and reciprocally the biochemical oxygen demand is going to rise up, because the dissolved oxygen which is present in the water has been consumed by the microorganisms who are feeding on the organic matter.
And the biological oxygen demand is the oxygen needed by bacteria and other decomposers to break down organic matter. So you can see that in the clean zone, we've got a pretty low level of BOD, or a low level of biological oxygen demand. And then all of a sudden in the decomposition zone, we shoot straight up. We have this major increase because we have all of this organic pollution that's being dumped right here. So we've got this organic matter that needs to be decomposed. So all of a sudden, all of these decomposers need to do a lot more breaking down of organic matter, so they need a lot more oxygen. As we get further and further from the dump site, that biological oxygen demand decreases until we finally get it back down to normal levels in the clear zone. Alternatively, this also shows our level of dissolved oxygen. And our dissolved oxygen is the oxygen used by those decomposers to break down that organic pollution. So we start really high in the clean zone, and we have the sharp drop off in the decomposition zone until we finally get to this low point here in the septic zone. And this low point where I've got my star is called the sag point. This is why it's called the sag curve, because we show the sag of dissolved oxygen in a stream or a river or marine body of water. The sag point, again, denotes our lowest level of dissolved oxygen in our water. So we also equate that to the worst zone for marine life because our oxygen levels are so low. The marine life you'll find here is not going to be things like fishes and marine mammals and those kind of things, because there is not enough oxygen for them. We're really only going to find bacteria and other decomposers like worms that are actually doing the decomposition of this organic pollution that's been dumped. Again, if we look at the zones on the opposite ends of the diagram, our clean zone, high in dissolved oxygen, it's going to be a really great area for fish and other marine life, so you're going to see a lot of your life in the clean zone. Also, after we have recovery after the pollution, when you get to your clear zone, again, you'll have your fish come back, you'll see a large increase in marine life because that DO level has risen again. One thing before we end this video, I want to talk a little bit about how this relates to cultural eutrophication. So what happens with our organic pollution is similar to what's going to happen with our marine life that ends up dying as a result of cultural eutrophication. So just a quick review. In this process, fertilizer runoff makes plant life grow rapidly. So we get these big algal blooms, these big increases in seaweed, and basically what happens is it blocks out the sunlight. When it blocks out the sunlight, our plants and marine animals that rely on those plants as producers die off. When they die, again, these are living things, so they're organic matter that falls to the bottom of the lake, and then decomposers need to come in and actually break them down. Just like in our sag curve, our decomposers need to use oxygen to break down that organic matter, and it depletes the DO that's in the actual lake. The problem with eutrophication in lakes is that it's a stationary body of water. So things aren't moving, it's not getting rid of that, excuse me, it's not getting rid of that pollution. It's basically just sitting there. And because it's a stationary body of water, the DO is depleted throughout the entire thing, and marine life is never able to really come back.
So what we need to understand from this video is, the reason why I continued the video with the eutrophication part is because, as I told you in the beginning, when we speak about aerobic lagoons, aerated ponds, okay, we are adding oxygen by giving aeration. But in self-purification of rivers, mechanical aerators are never in place because of the hydrographic features, the velocity, the currents, and the expanse. Okay, so please do not forget that if a river has to be purified on its own, the river needs to be running fast, running long distances, and has to be wide. Okay, and of course, apart from that, the human beings have to understand what is the carrying capacity or what is the potential of a river or a stream to get self-purified. So friends, so this is the end of today's presentation, wherein you have understood what are the various factors which influence disposal by dilution. Okay, that is self-purification of rivers. You've also understood primarily what are the 4 zones of pollution, or rather purification, in a river or a stream. So these are the references for your kind perusal. Okay, now in the subsequent class we are going to understand about DO sac curve, dissolved oxygen sac curve, wherein we will try to understand how it functions in relation to biochemical oxygen demand curve. All right, so I thank you for your kind patience, and if you've got any queries, you may kindly address it in the forum now.